Notre Dame fans, welcome back to another edition, a special edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. It is Saturday. It is August 7th. It is the first day of fall practice, which means now we get to determine everything we're going to need to know about the football team for the rest of the year, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously kidding. So here to talk about the first practice, some news and nuggets from that practice. We're also going to react to Brian Kelly's press conference today. But the good news is, Vince, football is officially back for the University of Notre Dame. Notre Dame held their first practice of fall camp today. As it always is, it was a practice that was just in shirts and shorts. Although Brian Kelly did note during the press conference, they have what they call like skelly pads, right? Which is essentially allows them to kind of have some things underneath their jersey, so they're not just running around in jerseys, which is pretty cool.
And that actually makes a lot of sense, because when I was watching him run around, I was like, does he have shoulder pads on?
Yeah.
But I was like, maybe he just fills out the jersey.
Which I think it's smart. I think it's good. I love that new technology. I wish we had that when I played and coached. So that's obviously a big thing. We're going to talk a lot about that. Vince, you were at practice today. We only got to see the first 30 minutes of practice. It was a lot of stretching.
Yes.
A lot of special teams drills right. And a couple things. So we're not going to know everything about the Notre Dame football team, nor would we know if we were there for the entire 2 hour of practice.
Very good point.
Let's dive in. There were some very interesting things in the press conference today, Vince, but I first want to start off, before we even get to practice, I want to start off and talk a little bit about Jordan Patel. There's been a lot of stuff going around this summer, a lot of rumors about who started the rumor. It wasn't me. And so Brian Kelly talked today, and he said that he was pretty indignant about there being a rumor. Acted as if he had no clue where it came from, and said they expect Jordan Patel to be here. He was asked, then followed up, so do you expect him to play the whole season? And he said yes. So that's obviously great news for Notre Dame. If that turns out to be true, I have to say that I kind of got a chuckle at the veracity with which Brian Kelly denied it, because the reality is when there's enough sources out there that have been good sources that have told me and other reporters about what's going on, that there was something. I don't know what it was. There's a reason we didn't report on it, because it wasn't something we could get confirmed, but it does sound like whatever was going on, that it looks to be like it's going to be resolved positively for Notre Dame and for Jordan Patel, which is very important. But there is a reason that Justin Moala today was working with the Viper position, who spent all spring working at strong side end and all 2020 at strong side end. There's also a reason that Jordan Patel, who spent the entire spring as the number 2 Viper, was with the third team Viper when they were out in individual. Now, again, that it is what it is, but based on what Brian Kelly said, if we take him at his word, and I'm going to, this is good news for Notre Dame, that Jordan Patel was at practice today, was dressed, and was participating, because that's the thing, is if he was suspended and they were just kind of having him out there because they didn't want him to, they didn't want to have to answer that question, he wouldn't have been going through drills.
Right.
So the fact that he was out there going through drills is a good sign. So that was very, very interesting, and obviously good news for Notre Dame. Yeah, so but let's kind of dive into practice first, Vince. So you were out there for the first 30 minutes of practice.
Yeah, ish.
Yeah. So we got to see a lot. So if you want to kind of your takeaways from what you saw from practice today.
So I want to I guess I want to let everybody know kind of what we were there to see. So the way fall practice is going to go, there's 4 practices where we get 30 minutes, and then there's 2 practices where we will be there the entire time. This was one of those 30-minute jobs. And, of course, everybody that was there was overly excited about being there. And I will say also the players were also very fired up to be at the very first practice of the season. A lot of hooping and hollering, and you could just tell there was a bounce in the step of a lot of guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I say something real, Vince?
Yeah.
That has not always been the case at the first practice.
It was today.
Right. Yeah. No, I want to make sure that people, because I think the first thought is, well, of course it's first practice. There's going to be a lot of energy. That has not always been the case. We've been to some Culver practices, the first practice.
Oh yeah.
Where it was quiet and not a lot of energy, and guys just kind of going through the motions. We've seen that. Actually, we've seen that more often than not. So I did want to react initially to that first comment.
Fair enough.
You said there was a lot of energy, because I think that's a good sign, and it backs up what you and I have been hearing about this team, that this is a team that's going to have a lot of swagger and a lot of confidence this year.
Yeah, and I noticed a lot of interaction between the upperclassmen and the freshmen, which I don't think we always see either. So I thought that was good too. But again, Notre Dame does a very, very good job of wetting the whistle of the media and allowing us to take very small things and turn them into large things potentially. Can I just say that?
Because how they lined up today during team takeoff against no defense is how it's going to be for the rest of fall camp.
Yeah, right. So let me jump into that real quick. So we're all out there, and we're all out there earlier. You can go ahead and pull that up, Brian, because
Thank you, Truman, very, very much, buddy. That's a great way to kick off our fall camp coverage, man. I appreciate
fantastic.
That very, very much, and we're glad that you're here on a Saturday afternoon.
Yes,
talking Notre Dame football.
No doubt about it. Not a much better way to spend a Saturday morning. Although, in case my wife ever watches this, it is our anniversary. I would rather be spending it with her. I will say that because I love her.
You're going to make it up to her tonight.
Yes, I will.
When you're taking her to a really nice place and all that
Absolutely.
kind of stuff. So
all good. But just in case, she won't watch. But
she's a football coach's wife. She gets it.
Be safe. Yeah, exactly. She knows. She knows.
She gets it.
But anyway, media was there first. We're all out there waiting. And the players started to trickle in. They started doing some of their pre-practice stuff. And I swear to all that is good is that the coaches just wanted to mess with the media because they lined up they were going offensive line, for example. They had 5 offensive linemen out and then another group right behind them. And they were kind of going through just some recognition type drills, just like walkthrough type stuff before practice got started. And the first group that they had out there was, a hodgepodge of what the first group ended up being. And so, of course, all media is like writing down who was, and I remember I texted Brian. I was like, this is who they got with the first team.
Which I wasn't surprised by the way, and I'll explain afterwards.
Okay. And so I texted him who it was, and all the media people around me, they're like, they got to be messing with us, man. I'm thinking about it, And I was like, well, I don't know, but this is who they got out because it was plausible to me that would be the first team.
And essentially
very
it was
explainable.
Tosh Baker at left tackle, right?
Yeah.
Josh Leggett right tackle. Yeah, John Dirksen at a guard spot. You had Jarrett Patterson at a center spot. And who was the other guard? Was it Zeke Crow was the other guard? And you had Kane Madden with the 2. Now, I'm going to say something about that. That doesn't surprise me, and it's actually kind of laughable that it doesn't surprise me. And the reason for that is I've been sent some pictures of summer workouts, and when the offensive linemen have been going through drills, that's how they've lined up.
With that 5?
So sort of like a veterans kind of in there first, a returners in there first, which I find kind of dumb because when they went to the team takeoff period, it was Blake Fisher at left tackle, right?
Yep.
Zeke Carell at left guard, Jarrett Patterson at center, John Dirksen at right guard, and then Josh Leggett right tackle, correct?
Which was the 5 that I anticipated minus Madden, right?
So it's like, why are you going to go that way in a drill and then not have that first? But that's just, it is what it is.
It is what it is. So they did their little pre-practice, some drill work that the wide receivers were getting balls thrown to them by coaches. I thought the frontline guys looked really smooth. And you can kind of, again, media looking at little things and potentially making them bigger. But I tend to look at who's leading the drills, right? Which players are in the front of the line, that kind of stuff. I would say 90% of the time that'll tell you something. Sometimes it doesn't.
Most coaches in the country, though, want to know who that guy's going to be.
Right, exactly.
If they're not dictating it, they're going to look and say who's at the back, who's at the front of the line, who's at the back of the line.
Right. And Kevin Austin was front of the line of the wide receiver drill, followed by, I believe, Avery Davis was one of the top 3 guys. Lindsey was right up there. Keys was right up there. They all looked just smooth. I mean, they looked smooth. They had the jerseys kind of tucked up underneath their little pads that they were wearing. I mean, they look smooth. They look comfortable. Hand catches. They look good. Right. Mm-hmm. Then they kind of they got into group stretching, which took the vast majority of the time that we were there.
So that's really what you guys spent most of the day doing is watching them stretch.
Watching them stretch.
This is a little weird.
Watching them run, back and forth, things of that nature. But again, you can kind of get an idea of the guys communicating with each other and how they interact with each other, things like that. Then they got into some special teams. And by special teams, I mean they broke up into groups. The punt returners were over in one area. They had the kind of the cover guys in one area, things like that. you can't really get a whole lot from that. I wrote down, who was back there catching punts.
And I believe it was all offensive players except for Jojo Johnson, right?
It was all offense. It was all blue jerseys, period.
Because Brian Kelly had said that he was that he got some work doing punt return, so I wasn't sure.
Okay, it wasn't today.
Okay.
It was
maybe
all
they
blue
did
jerseys.
Something during team then, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I just was responding to what Coach.
Yeah,
Kelly
no,
said.
absolutely.
Unless JoJo was wearing an offensive jersey, which I don't think that he would be, right?
He was imagine that he would be.
Yeah, because you didn't comment on him during the receiver stuff, so he would be number 20, and there was no number 20.
No, there was no number 20. I wrote down all the numbers that were there, and that was not one of them.
Right.
But there was like 8 to 10 guys, all kind of 9 guys, back there catching punts. But it was a bunch of wide receivers. It was both running backs, Williams and Tyree. So can't really glean anything from that. There was also a couple walk-ons that were.
I want to see Audric Estime back there returning punts, Vince, just because I want to see him catch it and run over somebody.
Well, and there. Okay, so
because he's pretty big.
To your point, Audric Estime was not part of the first, second, or third team, so I didn't really get to see him run around a whole lot.
But he's a big boy.
Yeah,
I saw a picture. He's a big.
Oh, absolutely. Joker. Yeah. So. Then they went into team takeoff, and the offense stayed inside where the media was. Defense went outside, and of course, they would not let us outside at that time. So it was all offense. So we got to see, first team, second team, third team kind of do their thing.
Now, team takeoff, I want to explain to people what team takeoff is.
Please
because somebody actually made a kind of a funny joke on Facebook because we explained it as team takeoff is essentially just a drill to try to get you going, right? It's about getting some tempo going early in practice. So the first team will line up out near midfield. They'll run a play. Run the ball, may throw a quick pass, catch it for 5-10 yards, run for 5-10 yards, and then a GA sometimes it's like I don't even know what to call them, Vince, like the people that help out with practice.
Managers.
Right, the managers. There you go.
Yeah.
They'll run and quickly spot a ball like 5-10 yards downfield, and then they'll line up quickly, run another play, execute. So there's no defense on there, but I would hope that they would score every time, right?
Yeah,
So it's like, well, it's not kind of how the drill's going. He's being funny. But essentially, it's just a way to kind of get 4 or 5 plays in real quick, and then the next team will go too. And so that's what the team takeoff drill is, just so people can visualize that. But yes, to continue.
Yeah.
So the first team was
let's see, he had Cole. Cole. Where did
Jack
that come
Cohen?
From? Jack Cohen was at quarterback. It was split time between Tyree and Williams at running back. We already mentioned who the offensive linemen were for the first team, and then you had.
Joe Wilkins.
Thank you. Joe Avery Wilkins Davis, was out there. Avery Davis and Braden Lindsay. There were the 3. And then, of course, Michael Mayer was out there with the ones as well.
And you also said in your notes that you sent me that George Takis also got some work in there,
and
too.
So George Takis rotated in for Mayer about halfway through. That was the same time that Tyree came in for Williams. So
I found that to be somewhat notable. Like, I try not to overreact to first practices, but I found it. I'm not surprised that Chris Tyree and Cardin Williams rotated with the ones. We've seen that in the past. Even when there's been a starter and then a number 2, like we've seen, Dexter Williams and Tony Jones both getting on the first team. I was a little surprised that we saw that at tight end, and that has nothing to do with Michael Mayer. I think that says a lot about where George Takis is in the view of the staff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that as well, for sure. So second team, Drew Pine was at quarterback. Sibo Flemisser took all the reps at running back for the second team. We had Kane Barong was the tight end, number 80. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was going to ask that because I had wrote. I think I made a that was interesting. It was Kane Barong. Did you see Kevin Bauman out there at all? 84.
Not to my recollection. To be honest with you, because Kane Barong took reps with the second and the third team.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to notice in the in our practice report. I actually put Kevin Bauman, but realized that that was incorrect. Because I thought it was a mistake that it was Barong on both ones. You know what I mean? So that's interesting. I wonder if he's still banged up.
I sent you a couple of pictures of the guys that were off to the side.
I couldn't tell who one was. Will Schweitzer was one.
Okay.
But I couldn't tell who the other one was.
Yeah. It's really nice when they have guys off to the side when they wear their jerseys. That makes things a lot easier. But they were way off into the corner. But anyway, let's see. So second team across the board was, and I see some of these guys have new numbers too. But it was Tosh Baker at left tackle. It was Rocco at left guard, It was, let's see here,
Andrew Kristofic at center. Yep.
At center. Yep. It was Kane Madden at right guard, and it was
Michael Carmany
at right tackle. Yep. And then the wide receivers were Kevin Austin. It was Keys, and it was, surprise, surprise, Lorenzo Styles was the third receiver.
Now, you also said Mitchell Evans got a little bit of work with the number 2 group as well, correct? Right?
Yep.
88?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. He sure did. Let's see here. Going through my notes here just so I don't mess anything up for anybody. But yes, 88 got time with the second group as well. I saw that when I looked back at the video. So,
yep. So and then, Vince, I'm just reading here from your notes just real quick. I'm going to quickly roll through this. You had down on the third team Tyler Buckner, quarterback, Logan Diggs at running back. The 3 receivers were Xavier Watts, Jaden Thomas, and Matt Solario, which I thought was interesting that there's no Deion Colsey. Kane Barong at tight end. Offensive line left to right was Caleb Johnson at left tackle. Walk-on Quinn Murphy, who's a pretty good football player. He had Ivy League offers at left guard. Pat Coogan at center. Quinn Carroll at right guard, and Joe Alt at right tackle. Now, you had an observation, Vince, because Joe Alt was listed at 285 pounds. He was listed at 240 when he committed to Notre Dame, then was supposedly got up to 260. Then he got up to 280. He showed up at 305.
Because he was a tight end in high school.
He looked pretty big.
Yeah.
But you sent me a clip of him running around, and I'm like, yeah, that kid doesn't run like he's 305 pounds.
Well, and that's the thing. When you mentioned Joe Alt, I was like, I got to find him. And so I tracked him down, and I took a video, and I sent it to you, like you said. And he still runs like a tight end, in my opinion. He runs like a big tight end, like a big oversized tight end. Yeah, very smooth. He doesn't run like a tackle, right? Tackles kind of lumber. You know, they kind of do the side-to-side thing when they run. That was not the case with Joe Alt whatsoever. He has much more of an athletic gait than what your normal tackle would have, which was good. I mean, that's the kind of kid that you want to work with. You know what I mean? Because you can tell his feet are going to be good. They're going to be quick. They're going to be. I think you're going to see some movement here from Joe Alt. I think, and it's going to take him some time. Like, I'm not saying he's cracking the starting lineup. But what I am saying is I like what they have to work with him.
There's a reason he had a 4.5 star upside grade when they signed. Even though he was ranked low coming out of high school because of the size and the position change, there's a reason he had a 4.5 star upside grade.
He carried the extra weight well, is the best way to put it. So it was good. It was really good.
Now, you got to see some of the receivers going through drills, Vince. I know you came away impressed when we were talking beforehand. Just kind of give some thoughts on just from the couple clips that I saw. Kevin Austin looks to be
smooth.
He looks to be real good.
He looks to be full go from everything that I could tell. Again, they weren't hitting each other. They weren't doing any of that. But when he was going out in routes, he was a leader of that group, that was pretty obvious to me as well, which is a great sign. Yes, he was running with the 2s, but again, he missed all spring practice. It's the first practice back. Like, I am not overly concerned about that in any way. And again, just because you're running with the 2s, I still believe that those guys should be getting time anyway.
That stuff doesn't matter. I mean, we've seen that, Vince, where we've seen guys that run with the 2 every time we see them in practice, and then you get to the game and they get most of the snaps. I would hope that people don't put too much into the depth chart today. Like, so, for example, Xavier Watts was with the 3s. I talked to a source who said that, he got a ton of 2 work today. It's just a drill to get people work. It's not something that's meant to determine, okay, that's going to be the starter tomorrow, that kind of thing.
And I don't put a ton of stock in like jersey numbers and things like that, but they're not letting Xavier Watts change his jersey number from 82 to 2 if he's not going to get a little PT. Again, he's going to have to earn it over the next 24 practices. The point being, I just don't want people to react to so-and-so's lineup. Like, Kane Madden's the number 2. That's not locked in stone for the rest of fall camp, right? I mean, it's just – It's good to see guys getting work, but obviously seeing the receivers move around real good was nice to see. Defensively, there's just really nothing to report other than we got some D-line alignment. So you want to explain why there really wasn't anything we could really see from the defense today? So here's how it went.
Say 4 minutes? Is that what you said? You got seen for about 4 minutes?
By the time I got outside, because it was a 5-minute period, by the time I got outside, it was about 4 minutes. So we were up on the balcony in the indoor facility, and the defense, as soon as they went to team takeoff for offense, the defense went outside and did their stuff. Well, we had to stay inside. So we couldn't get outside to see what they were up to. When we were finally let go to go outside, that's when the offense went outside as well. So we had to go down the stairs, go across the field, get outside. And by then, the defense was running some individual drills and things of that nature. I got some video on that I will put up here in just a little bit. But didn't get a lot of look at them because we only had about 4 minutes, and then the horn blew and we got ushered out. So let's put it this way. Really looking forward to next Thursday when we get a full practice. And that way we can kind of make our way around and check out the defense a little bit more than we did today. And frankly, check out the offense as well. I mean, all we saw was team takeoff really from the offense, and that's going up against air. I look really good against air, and so did they. So I am not overly surprised about that at all. So defensively, got to see a little bit of drill work. I got to see some of the safeties. I got to see Chris O'Leary kind of talking to his guys, which was great. He kept emphasizing to keep the energy up. Don't be an energy vampire. That was the one phrase that he kept saying over and over again. Don't be an energy vampire, which I thought was really cool. So, and I got a little bit of them doing a little bit of drill work. You know, of course, Kyle Hamilton was moving really, really well. I thought Houston Griffith was moving really, really well from the safety position. So that was a good group. Let's see here. Was it the corners? Again, the drills were kind of on the other side of the field too. So didn't get a great look at what they were up to. I was right on top of the safeties, as you'll see in the videos. They were coming right into your kitchen for their drill work. So got a decent look at those guys. They look smooth. They look good. I'm gonna take a look at that video again a little bit closer to see what kind of what those backup guys look like in that drill too, to see what footwork how they did. But I was very impressed with Chris O'Leary and the way he was talking to the guys as well.
So any other takeaways, Vince, that you saw other than just, I mean, like I said, this, if you don't look good and you don't look ready to go on the first day of practice without pads on, it's going to be a long year.
That's absolutely right. I mean, look, the energy was high. There was guys bouncing around. I mean, they were excited. They weren't just going through the motions, which I think is probably the biggest and the best takeaway that you can have after a practice like this and after only seeing 30 minutes of it.
Not a given.
No, it's not. And it was hot too. I mean, let's be honest. There's no air conditioning in the indoor facility. And it was kind of hot and muggy today, and it was hot and muggy in the building. So plenty of excuses to kind of not be ready to go, fired up. You know what I mean? But I was actually really impressed. There was a lot of talking from the upperclassmen to the younger guys. The younger guys were filling in great, I felt like, overall. Lots of high fives, lots of chest bumps, lots of hand, all that fun stuff. So, I mean, it was good. The energy was really, really good. And again, team takeoff, they look great against air, which was
awesome.
Good.
That's a good start.
It's a good place to start. Look, we were
I'm not
watching.
Gonna lie, I have seen days where that didn't go well. Not only at Notre Dame, but of course, I've had days where it's like, did we seriously just throw 3 straight incompletions against air?
Like,
come on, give me a break. So yeah,
believe me,
I have been there. Yes, I have been there.
Uh-huh.
Couple things, Vince, for me that I want to kind of transition into next for the Brian Kelly press conference, which I thought were interesting.
Okay.
Number one, just kind of quickly, Jarrett Patterson's at center. You noted that in your practice report.
Yes.
It's something we had put on our message or on our, an intel piece on our message board here a couple weeks back that we heard he was going to be back at center. And Brian Kelly just kind of mentioned that it's just, he's your best guy there. Right. And kind of hinted that like it was also about his future, this kind of stuff, meaning, the next level, that's where people see him.
Sure.
So obviously that's good. I think we've kind of solidified that. The other piece of intel that we put on our message board. So if you're not a member of the board, you didn't know. If you're a member of the board, you knew this 2 weeks ago, right? But Zeke Correll playing left guard, and Kane Madden at right guard, meaning just where they're going to line up, not first team, but where they're going to line up. So I thought that was interesting. Clearly, they're going to give Zeke Correll a chance to start. It's just not going to be at center. And so I think they want to have that anchor at the center spot. Here's the other really interesting piece, Vince, and this surprised me. He said during the press conference that he's going to probably name a starter at quarterback after the first scrimmage. So to give you all a heads up, the first scrimmage is going to be next Saturday. That's 1 week into practice. He's already saying one practice that they're going to probably name a starter. That to me, now that's what Brian Kelly said. I'm going to transition to my opinion and my read, right? So let's make sure that we understand the difference between what we're reporting as news and then what I'm sharing as my opinion.
Right.
There's no way it's not Jack Cohen at this point in time. No way. There's no way they're going to name Drew Pine or Tyler Buckner or Brendan Clark the starter after a week, right? After the first day they announce it, that they're going to name it in a week. And obviously he left himself a little wiggle room, but for Kelly to make that kind of statement was surprising. And it just tells me that it's going to be Jack Cohen. The other thing he mentioned is that Jack Cohen, he raved about Jack Cohen. And he talked about, Matt Bayless named him an ultimate warrior, which is, not the wrestler, but like it's part of their workout group of the guys that are just really leading. He praised his leadership. Brian Kelly, when he has a quarterback battle, is notoriously hesitant to kind of praise the guy that we think is going to be the starter. It's like when we bring up the starter, he will always kind of like, well, but so let's talk about the number 2 and the number 3 guy. That did not happen today. Here's how I read into that, Vince, and I want to hear your thoughts on this too. Jack Cohen has earned the starting job. Mm-hmm. His leadership in the offseason and his performance. He's earned the starting job. No matter how well Drew Pine has done, no matter how talented Tyler Buckner has done, Jack Cohen has won that job. That's not surprising to you and I. We've been hearing that since the summer and since the spring, that this is going to be Jack Cohen's team. But for Brian Kelly to be that effusive in his praise of Jack Cohen this early says a lot about what Brian Kelly thinks about Jack Cohen, because that is not typical Brian Kelly. That's just not normally how Brian Kelly acts about a quarterback this early that has not played for him. And he was like that way with Ian Book after a couple years, but like it's normally like, hey, look, it's a battle. These guys are all going to battle, and he'd talk about all the other guys. So Jack Cohen is, and I think the other reason for it is he's now telling his team 17 is our leader. That's our quarterback. And the fact that the team knows this early, I think is a positive, because it means that Jack Cohen is healthy, number one, from the foot injury that cost him last season. But number two, Jack Cohen has done everything possible to win that job. Because look, they didn't do that with Kane Madden. Kane Madden started today with the 2s. Cade Madden's an incoming preseason All-American, according to Pro Football Focus and everybody else, right? He's with the 2s today. Jack Cohen is being thrust out in front of everyone saying, this is our leader.
Yeah.
That surprised me. Not that that's the decision, but that Brian Kelly was that open about it. Vince, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll echo the surprise for sure, but as it relates to the team, I think it's fantastic. I think that's the best possible news that you could get at this point, because, look, I mean, quarterback's the most important spot on the field, no matter how you want to phrase it, how you want to frame it. It just is, and that could be a cloud that hangs over this team if Brian Kelly is, well, we don't know, it could be this guy, it could be this guy. Because if you let that play out too long, you've got guys that understand who it's going to be in the locker room, but then you just start to have some division. You just do. You've got guys that are going to take sides, and hey, look, this is who it is. He's clearly earned it. Everybody knows it. You can't hide it. So let's go with it. I mean, and that's the way I see it. I feel like this is more of something for Jack Cohen than it is from Brian Kelly. I think Jack Cohen has just gone out there and done so much, whether it's in the weight room, whether it's at practice, whatever the case may be. It's so obvious that he's the starter that even Brian Kelly can't mess with the media on this one, because it's going to get out there.
Right. I mean, but part of me wonders this too, because we've seen this before, Vince. We've seen in the past where Brian Kelly said there's a quarterback battle. Then we talk to sources and they're like, well, there may be a battle, but so-and-so is taking all the first team reps.
Right.
And then he still comes to the media and says this, and this. So part of me wonders if this is just another example of well, not just that. Well, it's not that. I've said this. I think Brian Kelly has a different outlook on this team than a lot of people do. I think Brian Kelly's very confident in this football team. I've talked to several sources, including some who are not usually overly optimistic over the summer, that have just like, there's just a different something about this team. And Brian Kelly, I've had people that have known Brian Kelly for like 3 years. It was a parent. I'll be honest. Okay, as a parent. And this parent has been a part of the program in some form or fashion, either as a commit or a player, for over 3 seasons. And he's like, I've never really had a conversation with Brian Kelly. He saw me this summer walking around campus with my son, and he came up to me and like came at me and came up to me and shook my hand. Hey, how are you? He was just super excited. He's like, I've never seen that Brian Kelly before.
Yeah.
And I was like, were there some recruits around? He goes, nope, there weren't any recruits around. And so I'm like, oh, wow. Right. So we're just hearing nugget after nugget. I think Brian Kelly's really confident in this football team.
Good. And
he knows for this football team to reach their peak, it's not about games. It's about presenting Jack Cohen to the team as our leader. You can do that privately. You can do that to your team, and you can do that in press. And then the players know that hey, he's going to say what he's going to say to the media. The fact that he's doing it publicly and privately, meaning with the team.
With the team, yeah.
Says a lot, not just about, to me, just about Jack Cohen, but I'm reading something into that, and that it's just another example of Brian Kelly is conducting business a little bit different than he has in the past. And there just was a bit of a confidence in him, and not in a way that we've seen him talk about other players who maybe are good kids and work hard, but maybe aren't the greatest talents. It was different. And I took away. He also said they're going to name captains on Monday, which is interesting. That's varied. Sometimes it's early in camp. Sometimes it's been later. I was actually thinking this team would probably name captains later since they lost so many captains from last year. So they've already been voted on.
All right.
And so he said they've already been voted on, but the way captains work at Notre Dame is you actually have to be approved from the school. So like if there's a red flag on a kid's, background, remember that year Ronnie Stanley was not allowed to be a captain because he got in trouble for something. So once it's approved by that, he'll name captains on Monday, which I found also a little bit surprising, but a positive because a team that's lost so many starters has already kind of had leaders emerge.
They had their leadership in the offseason, and it was clear.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He mentioned guys that had, I think his phrase was transformative off seasons. He talked about Joe Wilkins Jr., Kevin Austin, Lawrence Keys, a receiver. Those are positives. The other little medical note, so Will Schweitzer was not out today. Brian Kelly didn't talk about that, but you saw him. He was not in pads. He was over there working out with the trainers. But the other part was he said Paul Moala is full go from his Achilles injury. That's a positive too.
Huge.
Because if Paul wasn't able to be full go through camp, he was going to have a hard time really battling for playing time.
Yeah.
So that it was good to hear Paul's healthy. And honestly, I was surprised at how few guys that are not battling with summer injuries right now.
Right.
That's usually not the case. And from what I've been told, they have been pushed hard this summer. But there was only one guy was out, and that was Will Schweitzer. And again, I don't know if I saw Kevin Bauman. I don't know if he's still out there or not. But those were injuries that were suffered in the fall. Or spring, excuse me. So those are not summer injuries. Those are injuries that are still guys recovering from the spring. So that's a good sign for Notre Dame too, that they're entering fall camp in pretty good health across the board.
Oh, absolutely. And you brought up Paul Moala, and I just think that if he's full go, I see him as potentially the number 2.
He'll have a role.
I really do. He's so smart. He's so good. He's so versatile. He's very versatile, which is exactly what you want at that position.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited to hear that he's full go and ready to rock.
So one of my former players is here with a super chat. Tim Opal, who's now a doctor, by the way. So Tim Opal with the Tim Opal was actually a freshman starting offensive lineman for us when I was at Muhlenberg College. So my running back, who was an All-American that year, Matt Bernardo, it was thanks to Tim Opal and the rest of those boys up front for that one. That's awesome. Right. That's right. So thanks for the super chat, Tim, and glad that you're here with us today. So those are some of the notes and nuggets from today's practice, Vince. Not a whole lot else to really
not a whole lot.
Report through. He did note that there's a
next week
really deep at linebacker. Really loaded at linebacker. I don't think Notre Dame's all that deep at linebacker, just from a pure number standpoint. But the guys that are there, obviously, he's talking about how there's great depth. They don't actually have a 3 deep at both inside linebacker spots of scholarship players, so that's not overly deep. But there's a lot of competition, and that's kind of what I took from that. He made the joke, Coach Kelly likes to be, but he says we should get Marcus Freeman up here, and I'll sit with you guys. We can ask him a million questions because I ask him that question every day. Who's going to be the linebacker? How are we going to get all these linebackers involved? And I'm like, well, see, that's why Coach Kelly should listen to our show more often because we've addressed this. We've explained this already,
right?
I'm kidding, obviously, but Yeah, it was an interesting press conference, Vince. It really was. It was. He already has an edge. He's already got he's got to get his little swings in at which I don't care. I mean, whatever. I don't take that stuff personally. It is what it is.
Bring it on,
man. The only time I ever his comments after the Alabama game last year ticked me off a little bit, but for the most part, it's like, look, he's got to play the game, right? I mean, he's the head coach. He's got to. He gives us stuff to write about, so I appreciate it. But he had an edge, a little bit of an edge to him today. I thought. I mean, I could have been reading into that, but edge to me is a good thing.
Yes,
it's a good thing to have an edge.
Yep,
a lot of confidence, and it just backs up what we've heard about this team from the summer and from the spring. The confidence that this staff has in this team. So yeah, a lot of good news, a lot of good takes. Vince, thanks for being there today and checking that out. We're going to hopefully have some more folks here at these practices moving forward. So I'm hoping to have some announcements on some of those things here coming up here real soon. But anything else that you want to kind of go through from practice before we dive into some questions here?
No, like I said, first, number one, from a personal standpoint, it was just great to be at practice, and it was great to see those guys running around. I mean, that was refreshing, to say the least. So I appreciated that. Didn't get to see as much as I would have hoped, obviously. But again, once I get some of my compadres there, that'll be a little bit easier, and we'll be able to move around a little bit more. But the full practice, I think, is going to be, again, it's not going to define the rest of the season. I don't want people to get too excited, but I think we're going to be able to, a few more answers, a few more observations, things of that nature that I'm really
we'll get 6, right? 2 full practices and then 4 that are going to be like
snippets.
this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put the schedule of that on the message board today, which you can find down here. And if you haven't signed up, sign up because we're going to have a lot to talk about, a lot of intel here coming up. But certainly a good start, a healthy start, no injuries. That's always the one thing I wanted to accomplish always as a coach at the first day was practices, not to have that weird first day injury. And from everything we've heard, that didn't happen. So that is the first day of practice. So we're going to go through here and we're going to answer some questions and some comments if you all have them. So start firing away with your questions. Michael, obviously excited. I believe that is in reference to Jack Cohen. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say,
I bet you it was Patel though.
Oh, Patel. Okay, there you go.
I bet it was Patel because I thought that at first too. Yeah. I was like, Cohen was there.
Gotcha. He was with the third team defense. We're excited about that.
Yeah, right.
Coach Koch. So the offensive line groups have me a little confused. I'm not an O-line guy, but is there a reason they mix them up like that? I'm going to assume, Coach, that you're referring to the first part of the practice that Vince talked about, and then the team takeoff. I think it's just the practice thing is just having your veterans up front, which technically is Tosh Baker at left tackle, and then you have Zeke Krell is a veteran at guard, and then John Dirksen isn't as old as Kane Madden because Kane Madden's I think the oldest dude on the football team, but he's new, and so he's not going to be with the one. So I believe that's where that comes from. And then once you get out to the team takeoff, now you're putting your actual first team out there. So one's a drill. You want your leaders in front to start the drill. The other is actually going through a rep. So, okay, that's fine. I don't care. I mean, they're going to get they're repeating the same drill. It's just the first 5 do the drill, then the second 5 do the drill. So I don't really care. And it's more of a takeoff drill. So it's not like they're communicating. They're not working on combo blocks together. If they were doing that, I'd say, different. That's a waste of a rep. Right. But that's not what they're doing. It's just take off. It's just get in your stance and come out of your stance. Correct?
They had like some of the walk-on linemen like holding bags and things like that. So it was more.
But it was like it was a one guy. It wasn't them working together. There was no communication. Everybody's going to get the exact same rep.
Right.
Whether you're with the first group or the third group. So
it definitely wasn't working combo blocks and things like that.
Right. Now that would have been something I would have been critical of if they're doing that. Like, hey, look, get your guys you think are going to be your guys out there, but that's not what it was.
Right.
So I have no problem with it. And coaches do that kind of stuff all the time. Hey, I want especially the first day of practice, I want to get my veterans out there. I want to have them setting the tone. Although with this offensive line, it's like, your veteran left tackle's a sophomore.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to say your veteran is at center, and that's about it. But
well, I just mean at that particular position.
Right.
But so I thought that was kind of interesting. But a couple comments.
Got the media talking. That's for sure.
Yes, no doubt. Robert says, nice to see Austin running routes again, and he says, I still think Rocco is better than Zeke. Based on what? I'm just curious about that, Robert. If you could answer that, based on what?
Because we had a chance. We've seen Zeke start a college football game. We have not seen Rocco start a college football.
We haven't seen Rocco play a
seen
snap of college football, other than we saw him in the spring at guard. And the reason he was starting at guard in the spring is because Zeke Correll was playing center because there was no Jared Patterson,
and because Patterson was out. Right.
So I just sometimes we kind of get into the whole, well, this guy was ranked higher, or we've seen this guy make mistakes or get beat before. This guy's never made a mistake because he's never played before.
And I will say, I thought Zeke Corell looked really good. I thought he looked bigger than the 295 that he's listed at.
He's just kind of so short and compact that he fills that thing out pretty well.
Yeah, he looked good. I mean, he looked like a good guard to me.
I had him ranked at. They said him listed 295. This is what I wanted to do, Vince. I did want to go over some of these. What we also have, we had this on at IrishBreakdown.com. So this is for free, but this is also premium. They had the new heights and weights. There's a bunch of number changes. Like Xavier Watts is now number 2. DJ Brown is now also number 2. I'm actually going to pull that up because there was a lot of number changes today.
Yes, there were.
So I was kind of going through that. Let's see. Clarence Lewis is now number 6. Joe Wilkins is now number 5. Justin Adamiola is now number 9. Nana Osafa-Mensah went from 18 to 31, which was his position in high school. If you remember correctly, he was 31 in high school. So looking through that, and just Alexander Ahrensberger is number 90 now after being 98 last season. And I believe that is it as far as number changes.
Was Litchfield number 4 last year?
He is now. He was from 23. He's now down to 42. That's another one.
That's what he was. Yeah.
So some of the weight gains that were noticeable, Clarence Lewis was up 6 pounds. Brendan Clark was up 13 pounds. Tyler Buckner was up 8 pounds, up to 215. Those are the quarterbacks. Audric Estime checked in at 228. He was listed at 215 when they signed him. Logan Diggs was at 207. That's the small freshman back, 6 foot 207. I thought that was pretty interesting. Ron Paulus the third. It's the third, right, Vince?
He is the third.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was up 10 to 225. Drew Pine is up 6 to 200 pounds.
He's a linebacker before it's all said and done. He's a big. He was bigger than a lot of his linemen last year.
He's a good sized kid.
Yeah.
A couple more just kind of by. Maris Luafau is now number 6 or no 8.
8.
Was it 8?
It's 8.
So Maris is now number 8. He's up 3 pounds at 229. Let's see here, a couple more of these heights and weights. Ryan Barnes put on 5 pounds, freshman cornerback. So some of these freshman numbers. So the freshman heights and weights for a lot of these guys was what they were listed on signing day. But like Ryan Barnes is actually up 5 pounds to 187. That's from the spring because he was here in the spring. Deion Colsey's listed at almost 6'5" and 207 pounds. He was listed at 6'3" when they signed him. Chance Tucker was listed at 165 on signing day. He checked in at 183. That's up 18 pounds. He's a cornerback, number 18. Jojo Johnson on signing day was listed at 5'10", 175. He was measured in today at 5'11", 191. So an inch taller and 16 pounds heavier. Lorenzo Styles was up 9 pounds to 195. Logan Diggs was 206, excuse me. Justin Walters, this was a big one, Vince. The freshman Justin Walters was up 10 pounds to 188. That's much better than the 178 he was listed at. This summer. Jack Kaiser was actually down 5 pounds, which isn't overly surprising. Playing the Rover, he was down to 222. Kari G, the freshman safety, is listed at 195. That's up 10 pounds. Prince Collie is listed at 222. That's up 12 pounds. Kahan Nokia was listed at +7. Jason Ogne, who was listed at 6'5", 245 when Notre Dame signed him in December, was reported today at 6'5", 289. That's a 44-pound difference.
He had a little bit of a belly, a little bit, sticking out of that jersey, but he filled out filled out.
Rocco Spindler was listed at 300, which was down 15 pounds, and that's not surprising, Vince. I never thought Rocco looked 315 pounds.
No, me neither.
Blake Fisher was listed at 335, so that's up 5 pounds. Jacob Lacy was down to 2, because we had reported this. Again, this was reported at Irish Breakdown on an Intel feature last week, so if you are an Irish Breakdown board member, you already knew this. But Jacob Lacy, who spent much of his career listed in the 290s at Notre Dame, was down to 275. He was listed at 275. That's 18 pounds down from the 293 he was listed in the spring. I think that lost weight is going to help him move a little better, but also I think they're trying to get him to be a little quicker, but also a little bit more flexible to help protect that shoulder. Michael Carmany, this was surprising. He was down 10 pounds from what he was listed at. And again, some of these times it's not necessarily a guy gaining or losing weight. Sometimes it's just a correction of the weight.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get a weight incorrect. Like I don't think Rocco Spindler was actually 315 pounds. Caleb Johnson, the freshman offensive lineman who was an early enrollee, was up 12 pounds to 287. Now that one was interesting. Josh Lugg down 5 pounds. Joe Alt was up 25 pounds from what his signing day of 280 was. He was up to 305. Quinn Carroll's up to 313. Pat Coogan also had a 15-pound gain from where he was on signing day, up to 305. Tosh Baker has an extra 7 pounds of listed weight, up to 307. Let's see here. Jaden Thomas was listed at 6'1.5", 215, which is much closer to what he is than what they had him listed at 185 or what? Excuse me, like 190. I'm trying to look at the weight here. And then Myron Tungavaloa, it's official, is down into the 260s. They had him at 268, so that's down. That's down actually 24 from what they had him. No, he was 282 in the spring, so that's down 14. And then Riley Mills is up to 283 plus 10 pounds. So those are some of the takeaways from the the heights and weights from the Notre Dame practice. So I thought some of that stuff was interesting that I wanted to put in there as well.
All right, so you want to continue on with the questions?
Yeah. So I believe we they're talking about, somebody asked something up with Patel. We answered that, and then Robert said no clear, just rumors, nothing, just BS on Twitter. It's not. It may be. I don't know what's being said on Twitter, but the stuff about that was being reported by Tim Priester reported this, for example, about some of the things he's reported. We never reported on it for a reason. I have no problem with Tim doing it because Tim was repeating what his sources told him. But what Tim was putting out there was confirmed, was something that's what we heard at the beginning. Yeah. Other people have reported this isn't BS. Okay. These are not, again, it seems like it's all worked out, but it's not a nothing burger, as I've heard some people say. There was something there. It just seems like they've been able to work through it, right, which is good. I hope that's the case. I really do. Yep. So you can say, hey, Brian Kelly said there's nothing there, but I think Brian Kelly also went the entire 2019 season and never actually admitted that Kevin Austin was suspended. I believe, wasn't that the case?
He never did say it,
even though he never played that entire season. So yeah.
But he played as a freshman.
Yep. So anyway, Frank Serra, Indy football's back. Hey, and again, I apologize for the late start. We were all set to go at 2:15, and then my computer kind of started acting funky, and I had to restart it. And this Mac literally took 15 minutes to reboot.
It was a while. Yeah,
I paid way too much money for this thing to take that long to reboot. Really, really, really. Okay, so then Tom Ballerk, this kind of fits into that. Tom asked a question, then that begs the question, has Jordan slipped some or has Nana progressed and is healthy? Well, those two things don't really have anything to do with each other. Nana is at strong side end.
Right.
And so he is getting some work there with he lined up. So we did get a little bit of a look with the D line just because where they lined up on the sled. Nana was with the second team big end. Justin Adamiola was the number 2 Viper. That's more of in my understanding is that's a bit of a cross-training thing, not a full-time move, and a part of that's going to be dependent on who else is available at that position. And so, but also I'm hearing that Riley Mills might get a little work at big end at times. We're going to see a lot of that, whether Jordan Patel is part of the team or not. So I don't want people to read too much into that, although I think there is something there to that. If Jordan Patel is good to go, which, again, Brian Kelly said he is, we're going to take him at his word. You're still going to see some of this cross training because Marcus Freeman wants to be able to move guys around and mix and match and things like that. So I wouldn't read too much into where guys lined up on first, second, third team on the D line the first day of practice. We're going to see guys moving around. And if you see Nana with the third team or not getting reps next time, it doesn't mean he's not playing well. It just means that, they're moving some things around.
Yep.
Yeah. And so we're going to see that. But as we reported, we have heard that Nana had a good offseason. I don't know if he's ready to necessarily seize hold of a number 2 role just yet, but he's going to get a chance to earn some playing time. And it's also good that he's healthy. He's now almost a year removed from his knee surgery because remember, he got hurt towards the middle to end of fall camp last year. So, and he missed. I mean, he actually came back. I think the Syracuse game was his first came back, played a little bit that game, but so he's now much further removed. So, that is good to hear. Meat Leet says, what are the odds that Tyler Buckner will be the starter? I wouldn't say zero because of injuries, but like it would if everybody's healthy. It's like
he's third team right now.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't care too much about that. It's just he's a freshman, and Notre Dame has a quarterback that's led a team to the Big Ten.
Right.
And, like it wasn't until Phil Dracovich's second year that I started saying this kid needs to play. You never heard me say Phil needed to play as a freshman, or you never said it about Ever Golson, never said it about Deshaun Kaiser, never said it about Malik Zaire. He's a freshman quarterback. They got two pretty good kids ahead of him right now. If there's an injury, those odds go up. But right now, as we've said before, Tyler's got to hope that he performs well enough to say, hey, look, we've got to find a way to get this kid on the field some way, somehow. But he's not going to be the starting quarterback barring injury, at least in my opinion.
Right. And with Brian Kelly saying they're going to name a starter in the next week, those odds go down for Tyler Buckner.
All right. Well, at least to start the opener. Now it's about, how does Jack Cohen perform and those types of things.
But it says the starter, so beginning of the season.
Yep, agree. Yeah, we're going to look and see. We got a lot of questions or a lot of comments about the Tyler Buckner's odds of starting.
Yes, I see that.
I don't know if this is ill nasty. I don't know if this is ILL. They kind of look the same, or just nasty with a bunch of eyes before and after. But Joe Alt looks like a mountain, and that's the thing I noticed from the video you sent me, Vince. And you can allude on this. He doesn't look fat.
No,
he looked a lot like Liam Eichenberg, because that's the thing about Liam Eichenberg. Liam was like 305 to 308 his whole career. But Liam had no fat on him. He just was broad-shouldered, big arms, big hands, big feet. He just was that big kid, and that's what I thought I saw from Alt in the picture you sent me today.
Well, and I feel like he could still add some weight and be fine if that's the route they wanted to take with him. Because he does look like a mountain. I agree with that, and you could put some more weight on that frame and the way he's moving if that's what they want to do. I don't know if that's the route they're going to take, but. You could do that, and I think he would still be just fine. Truman Dumel has up here, how did Diggs and Estime look? Diggs was running with the third team against Air, which is great. But
again, really Vince didn't get to see anything besides just some individual drills. If you're a scholarship athlete at Notre Dame and you don't look good running through drills that we saw today, then you shouldn't be a scholarship athlete at Notre Dame.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Right. I mean, so the answer to all those, so like Michael Johnson also asked, how did Joe Wilkins and Lawrence Keys look? You said you didn't see any drop passes, correct?
No.
Right. Guys are running around fast. Again, these are scholarship guys in Notre Dame. And this isn't a slap in the face to you guys.
No.
It's more of the answer would be different if we got to see the whole practice. We'd have an answer for how a guy looked, because we'd see execution, his route running. How did he do in one-on-ones? Did he make some plays in 7-on-7? It's just, Vince saw stretching, special teams drills, and just individual drills, routes on air, reps on air for what was 4 or 5 for the first each team.
Yeah, the coach is throwing to the
and then individual stuff. That's it. So the answer is going to, for all these guys, they look good. It's just, but I wouldn't put anything into that because they're scholarship athletes in Notre Dame. They should look good in drills. We didn't get to see the stuff that would allow us to really give you an evaluation of how a guy played, which is the one-on-ones, the team drills, the half-line drills, the 7-on-7s, the half-field reads, the team stuff, the tempo stuff, all that kind of stuff. We didn't get to see any of that.
Yeah.
So just assume that the answer is going to be, if they were in practice without pads on with what we saw, that they look good. And that's not meant to be disrespectful. It's just
what we saw.
Yeah. He didn't get to see much.
Right.
So. Let's see a couple more. Michael says, my apologies if I missed the mention, but was Deion Colsey present? He wasn't practice today, Vince. Correct. He just wasn't part of the first, second, or third team and team takeoff, but he was there for individual drills, which is going to happen with freshmen in the pads. It's not a big deal. Michael Eakin joining the show. Hi, guys. Hi, Michael. Glad that you're here with us today. It's some other questions.
I like this. Kelly really loves Cohen. It appears that is the case. We will see how the love.
Ken Wayne Walker, 28. Yeah, he seemed fired up about Jack Cohen today, Vince. I mean, he really did. It was he seemed pretty fired up. Yeah, Ken Wayne also says that the defense could turn heads this season. I'm really curious to see that. And again, we have no way to know that from today's practice.
Right.
We have a lot of Vince and I both have a lot of confidence about this defense this year.
Yeah,
really
absolutely. Do. I think both sides of the ball can be very explosive. I do.
We have high hopes for the D line. I think some of the positions that people are concerned about we're a little bit higher on maybe than others. Safety, corner, especially corner. I think the big one for me, the only thing that I still have a little bit of is inside linebacker. That's the only position that, and one of the guys that we're about is a guy that's has 17 tackles for loss that last 2 years. That's Drew White.
Yeah, right.
If that's a concerning spot for you, you don't have a lot of problems you got to worry about on defense. You're going to be
right.
Drew White struggled last year, which he did, but he still had 58 tackles and 9 tackles for loss in 12 games. That was Jalen Smith's best year of tackles for loss. Right. Thank you for that, Brian Van Gorder. Tim Opal says, thanks for never mentioning the 3 holding calls in our playoff loss to John Carroll. Ha ha. Yeah, but you know what, Tim? I still remember that screen pass that we had set up to Bernardo where you and a couple other linemen would have walked into the end zone if Justin Jones didn't throw it at his feet. We ran a counter screen, Vince, and then we booted right, and he was going to throw back. We had 3 offensive linemen and nobody, for like 1 corner from John Carroll over there. And my running back was over 200 pounds, which at the D3 level is he'd have walked into the end zone, and the quarterback threw it about 4 feet in front of him. Just short hopped it. I was like, oh, my God. Yeah.
And generally, that's not something you can go back to. Either.
We lost 21-10. We also had an inside post route to Cody Shea that would have been a touchdown. I mean, he screwed the guy did a circle, and he would have caught it like the 5 and walked in, and he threw it about 4 feet in front of him. So it was not a good day for our pass game. That's no doubt. Michael says, I have this feeling that Jack Cohen is going to be unleashed, exceed and play way beyond what anyone expects him to. I just feel JC never had an opportunity at Whiskey to show what he's truly capable of. Couple things on that, Michael. I think he had a chance to show it. It just was so infrequently that people didn't really get to see it consistently.
Yeah.
But there's some things, the part of the excitement that I have, and then Vince has too, is I watched his film sooner than Vince did, like meaning studying it.
Right.
Once we both study the film, you see the scene. You see him attack the middle of the field.
Mm-hmm.
You see him putting corner routes, in front of a safety, over a corner, and over a linebacker. That we haven't seen a throw like that in Notre Dame in a while. He only did it 4 or 5 times because they just didn't allow him to do it a lot. So I think we saw it. But I'll say this: if he plays way beyond what anyone expects of him, if he plays way beyond what Vince and I expect of him this year.
Yeah, he's gonna have a great year
because we think he's going to be pretty good.
We're pretty high on him,
but I'm thinking that for nationally, he knows that there's a receptive audience to what he's saying here. I think I think to Michael's point, I think he is going to play way beyond what I mean, Vince, we're seeing top 25 quarterback lists that either don't have him in it or have him like 23rd, 24th, and 25th.
Yeah. That's where I shake my head. And I will tell people I retweeted a Phil Simms tweet yesterday that showed Jack Cohen doing a workout. And look, it's a workout, no pads, nothing like that. It's very similar to like an NFL combine workout, but you can get a good idea of what Jack Cohen's arm strength is like. And I will say Phil Simms' comments in the background are hilarious. So you definitely have your volume up, but it at least gives you an idea of what Jack Cohen can do with the ball in his hand.
You could hear Chris a little bit too, like receivers just wait a little bit, like his dad's doing all the coaching. But
you're right,
because I had a friend of mine was like, the receivers were having to wait on some of his deep balls, and I was like, buddy, watch it again. They were already starting 30 yards downfield.
Right.
Right.
They weren't coming a corner route. Scrimmage. Right. They were trying to save the legs.
When you're looking for something to be upset about, you're going to find something to be upset about. It's just.
But I thought it was good.
I was waiting. I was like, buddy, it was a 55-yard pass, and the guy started 30 yards downfield, and he rolled to his left.
See, that would make me look fast too. Like if I got a 30-yard head start.
Come on, rag arm. I started 40 yards downfield.
But it was good. I mean, did you like the video that you saw?
I did. Again, I didn't love the off-platform stuff.
Yeah, with the weird
you need to be able to do that. I didn't like that he was doing it on deeper routes.
Sure.
Pat Mahomes can do that because he's got a bazooka, but Jack Cohen shouldn't be. If you're going to do that, it's on a crossing route to get the ball out quickly to Braden Lindsey or Lawrence Hughes or beating somebody. That's fine. I think you need to be prepared. Look, you can't do those things just off your God-given, but you need to rep it. You need to practice it.
Yeah.
I just think some of the things that I see quarterbacks like. I've seen throws from the kid going to Ohio State where he'll like jump up and throw the ball this way as his body's going this way on a little slide route. Yeah, try that in a game where he's running against a defense and there's a guy playing off coverage that just then jumps in front of that ball and returns it for a touchdown.
Exactly. Good luck.
It's like some of that stuff. But no, I thought it was good. I thought that, working on the play action, trying to get the deep ball. I thought that he was doing a good job. At times he'd try to muscle up just a little. The couple times that his ball did not quite jump out on the deep balls is because you could tell he's really muscling it up, which we've talked about. I don't like. But when he just snapped it off, Vince, The out cuts are really good. It was just getting there, getting up and getting down real quick. So I liked it. I thought it was good.
Yeah,
somebody posted it on our message board last night, and I got a chance to watch it last night. I liked what I saw from him.
Yeah, absolutely.
No question. Michael Eakin, go Irish. Great to have football back. Let's roll. Vince, how did you feel being out there watching practice again? Because it's been a while, man.
It felt so good, man. I mean, it was just, I have to say, it felt like a year and a half just didn't exist. And we were right back to where we were supposed to be. Like that was like, complaining that we only had a half hour. Like that,
when it was March of 2020 was the last time you were out there watching a practice, right?
Which was a similar practice to what we saw today. Yeah. It was like helmets and
practice one.
We got another one in. Let's see what. Hopefully we're back on Thursday.
Yeah, no kidding. Michael Johnson says, hopefully we have some good news Sunday with CJ. Just a quick update, Vince. I know you talked about it in the podcast yesterday, but he is set to announce around 4:00. So we will have a podcast sometime around that time to react to whatever decision he makes. We will react to it. So if he picks Notre Dame, we'll talk about what that means. If he picks another school, be a little surprising for me, but we'll talk about what that means for Notre Dame. So if he, hey, where do they go next? What's next?
Right.
So we'll impact all that, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. So if that's a great reminder to hit the subscribe button, right? And hit the notification bell, because as soon as we hit submit on, hey, we're doing a show, you'll get notified of it and you'll know to join us. But that'll be at around 4:00 tomorrow, 4:00 Eastern tomorrow. Chili says, looks like Deion Colzie weight and height are changed, all positive. Yeah, so Notre Dame listed him at 6'3", 200 pounds. I never got that because Deion Colzie was bigger than 6'3", like for a while now. But to see him over 6'4", and the thing, we've talked about this before, Vince, Deion's younger than most kids in his grade too.
Right.
So I'm not surprised that he had the jump most guys have going into their senior year, because you see it, Vince. You coached high school for a long time. That's a year where a lot of kids make their biggest jumps, is that junior to senior year, just because hit that final, kid growth spurt.
Right.
And Deion, because he was a year younger, kind of had that going into college.
It's kind of that boy becoming a man physique kind of thing. Like you see a lot between freshman and sophomore year, but you're still a boy. Like, I don't know if I'm even explaining that right, but like that junior to senior is like, okay, that's a man now. That I remember thinking that about a lot of guys as they would come back for their senior year. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Liam Gaming says, let's see here. Would you run inside zone, outside zone, or pin and pull with this projected offensive line group? You want to go with that one, Vince?
I'm just rereading the question to make sure I got it right here. I would probably do some pin and pull stuff as long as, look, I'm going to go out here and assume that Kane Madden is going to be the starter. And so I don't want him pulling and getting outside. I want him doing the pinning of the pin and pull action, right? I mean, that's where I would want Kane Madden to be. I think you can get Patterson out in front. I think you can get some other guys out in front. I would rather have Kane Madden staying in. And nothing I saw today changed my opinion on that.
How did he move around, in your opinion, Vince?
He was okay. I mean,
one thing you texted me was he's really short.
He just looks small. I mean, and I tried to send you.
He looks short. He doesn't.
Short. To me, that's what I meant by small. But I tried to get a good picture to send to you, but he just looks small, like short wise. But again, if you get within his sphere of influence, he's really strong. But again, we didn't really get a chance to see anything like that because they weren't going up against other human beings. Mm-hmm. It was just literally running on air. And he still has that kind of, I'm chomping around and I'm, got lead feet at this point. Now, again, It was on air. It was, you can make your own decisions when I put the video out. But I didn't see anything today that makes me want to change my mind yet. So
I think inside zone is going to be a big part of what this team does.
Yes.
Inside zone for years was Notre Dame's top run play. Last year was more outside zone for a host of reasons. One being that when you're a team that is so run oriented and 12, 13 personnel oriented and teams are going to reduce the box, the outside zone allows you to sort of spread them out with your stretch look. But the other one is I think we are going to see more 11 personnel this year and spreading the field out. And I think we're going to see Michael Mayer lining up outside at tight end more than we maybe saw the tight ends last year.
Yeah.
That's going to create more vertical running seams, that's where you want to get that inside zone. So as you spread the defense out widthwise, then you want to really hammer them with that straight, hard downhill run. And you've got two backs that are good enough, in my opinion, to execute that. So, I think that's why we're going to see more of that. Plus, to your point, if Kane Madden is a starting guard for Notre Dame this year, he's a guy that you're going to want to come off and do physical, vertical combo blocks.
Right.
And I could see – and honestly, I think we're going to see a lot of inside zone being run away from him this year. The reason for that is we should do a football 101. Let's talk about this. We're going to do an inside zone football 101 this week.
I like that.
The reason is inside zone – the way most teams run inside zone – you're actually running it. So here's a great example. When Notre Dame ran inside zone in 2017, more times than not, they ran away from Quentin Nelson and Mike McGlinchey, because inside zone is a play that's designed to cut back or cut vertically behind the movement. So you're actually running it away from your strength, your perceived strength. Now, there's certain things that you're going to see as far as how teams line up and you want to run it, to the 3 technique or away from the 3 technique. Teams do it a little bit differently. But the way that Notre Dame did it, they would actually the play that decide where the cutback was their strong side. You run it here, but it's designed to cut back. And so I think we could see a lot of inside zone being run away from Kane Madden with the thought of him being sort of the guy that's going to get that movement,
that push
that you then cut behind him.
Yeah.
And that's where I think he could be a strength.
Sure. Yep.
And then to your point, some pin and pulls where he's blocking down and then you're getting Jarrett Patterson or be the one kind of pinning, with the pull kind of thing. So I think we'll see some of those things. And I think we'll see some counter stuff too. Because on a counter tray, he's the kick out guy. He doesn't have to go very far.
Exactly.
He just has to quickly come out and then just bam, hit that. And because of his power, he can get movement. So he can hit a guy. A lot of times.
Yes, that'll be a strength of his.
Right. What a defensive end is trying to do is when he sees that counter, he sees that kick out coming. His job is to stone that kick out and force that inside running lane, right? Well, if you're the guard, you're trying to move him out. You're trying to, again, it's called a kick out. Trying to kick him out. Get movement. I think that's something Caden Madden can do. Yep. He's not going to be, and as a guard, he's not doing a lot of the wrapping. That's either the tackle or the tight end.
Right.
He's just get out quickly and just go bam, hit that guy. And that's something I think he's going to be able to do as well. Armand joining the show the run to a national championship begins, and we have IB to guide us through the new season. So excited. I like all of what you're saying here, Armand. I think all of it has me excited. That's the great thing about day one of practice events is you're undefeated.
Yeah, baby.
You looked great because there's no defense and there's no pads, and it's just football season, man. Like if you think about it, we're about 20 days away from the first game of the season. Not Notre Dame's first game. Notre Dame's first game is going to be 29 days away, right? They're
something
on
like
September 5th. But there are actually some college football games the first weekend the last weekend of August.
Wow.
So I'm excited about that. Yeah, the first game of the year is on there's going to be games on August 28th. So we're literally 3 weeks away, 21 days away from the first college football games. There's actually a couple I'm going to want to watch. Nebraska plays Illinois that day. UCLA plays at Hawaii. I'm going to want to watch that game because UCLA is my sleeper in the Pac-12 this year. They're gonna surprise some people.
Chip Kelly, man.
Kind of, but they got a lot of guys back. They got Zach Charbonnet, who's a transfer from Michigan at running back. I like him. I like the kid that they got last year from Duke. Remember Britton Brown was part of that 1-2 punch at Duke with Deion Jackson. He was there last year, had a good year, but they got a lot of guys back. They got a quarterback that's inconsistent but talented, and I think the Pac-12 stinks. So I have UCLA just being not winning it, but just they're going to be better than people think they're going to be this year. So yeah, and then there's some games on September 1st, man. So I mean, we're September 2nd, Thursday, September 2nd. There's some games on that day. Boise and UCF play on September 2nd. So I mean, we're close, man. We're getting there. I'm excited about it. I'm very excited about it. Tracy Tipton, is Marcus Freeman doing an interview today? Thanks as always. Great show. You too. No, he is not.
Tuesday. He's got the Tuesday slot this week coming up, and then he's got the Tuesday slot next week. And then the Tuesday after that, he gets bumped for Brian Pullian. So he's got the next 2 Tuesdays. I just report the news, Brian.
Yeah, no comment. No comment. 2029, Jason Vaca. We knew he was big, but is being almost 230 too big for estimate? So I'm going to comment on this, Vince. I didn't see him other than like a long boy. He looks like a big boy. The too big is not something that's defined by your weight. It's defined by how you're carrying your weight. And also when a guy usually gets too big for me, it's not the being big that bothers me. It's the fact that sometimes when you put on too much muscle early on, you lose flexibility.
Right.
And that can, because like you kind of joke, you see those guys that are bodybuilders, but then you ask them to like, shoot a free throw and they can't go like this. And so it's like, or they can't scratch their nose, jokingly, because you're not really worried about. So like when I played football as a quarterback, we'd do a set and then we were always taught to, stretch afterwards. So after every set we'd stretch because you don't want to like get big and just kind of let it all like settle right here.
Right.
That would be my only concern for Audric Estime is, how's his flexibility, because the other thing too is that can then create some injury. If you can't bend as much, if you're not as flexible, you're going to get bent in a game. It's just going to happen.
Right.
And if you're tight, then that's how things pop. And so you ever wonder, like, there's certain athletes like that guy gets hit and all and twists and all, and he never gets hurt because he's super flexible. His body has a lot more give. Sometimes that's God given, but part of that is training. If you're not working on being flexible, then that would be my only concern. And then of course the burst. Does he burst? If his burst is there, I'm good. Because he was listed at 215, so it's a 13-pound jump, and he looks like $1 million. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I have some of the same thoughts that Jason had. Like, is he gonna really be there? That kind of thing. I don't like that. If that's the case, but if he's still got the burst, if he's still flexible, then it's all good. Because some guys just have those bodies that they get in the weight room and it's like just like that, they just blow up. So it'll be interesting. Beer Belly observes, Vince Kelly was in a good mood, joking around with the media about needing a drink and 2 questions at a time. He must feel good about this team. I think so.
Hopefully, yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. Dropping Dime says Buckner needs a package.
We've been saying that.
He's got to earn it, but I hope that he earns it. That would be
the Tommy Reese thing. I'll address that one because I got the schedule right here, Brian.
Yep. So Coach Cohen is going to exceed all expectations. Then also Tommy Reese probably on Tuesday as well. So you want to go ahead and address that, Vince?
Yeah, he is not on Tuesdays. He is on Thursday of this week. So the way they're doing it is that it's Marcus Freeman will go on Tuesdays with defensive players, and then Tommy Reese will go with offensive players. The next practice, which is Thursday, and then let's see, then Tommy Reese is again the following Wednesday with other offensive players. So both coordinators are going to meet the media 2 times. Where Brian Kelly will meet the media 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and Brian Pullian gets his 1-up time the last week of fall camp.
You know what made me think of when you started talking about Brian Pullian getting it? It made me think of Lou. Because who was the one person that always asked special teams questions?
That's why Brian Kelly said Lou is going to be the special teams coach.
Yes,
remember
I love
that?
It kind of made me sad, and I was thinking about that.
I know.
Yeah, but that was because Lou would always have the special teams questions, which were always awesome. Right. Coach Koch, preseason prediction: Cohen is a top 5 for the Heisman Trophy. Hot take. I'd say it's a pretty hot take right now, but it's not one that I'm gonna say you're an idiot. You know what you're talking about.
Well, okay, so Ian Book got
Ian Book was
for the
9th.
Heisman. He was 9th. Okay, I thought he was 8th off the top of my head. So 9th. Yeah. And his stats were pedestrian at best. And so with the stats that Ian Book had and the stats that I believe Jack Cohen will have moving forward this season, there's a great chance that Jack Cohen is going to get votes and could potentially be a top 5. Now, Notre Dame is going to have to be undefeated.
Right.
I mean, those two things kind of go together. I do
one loss maybe early, but yeah.
They got to be in the conversation.
Notre Dame's got to be really good.
Yeah.
His numbers have to be really good.
Yep.
And he has to play well in big games. Because here's the thing about Jack Cohen that's not getting discussed. And by the way, Coach, I love that hot take. I do. Because I wouldn't be completely floored by it if it did happen, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't either.
But, those things. But here's the thing that people have to remember is Sam Howell's definitely a preseason Heisman contender. I've heard people talk about Keaton Slovis from USC being a Heisman contender. I've even heard some people talk about Desmond Ridder potentially being a Heisman contender. So there's 3 guys that are going to be getting a lot of that
preseason buzz
that Notre Dame's going to go toe-to-toe with, which means not only does Notre Dame get a chance to get a win, but Jack Cohen gets an opportunity to then say, hey, I outplayed Sam Howell or I outplayed Keaton Slovis or whatever. And there's going to be a lot of eyes on that Notre Dame-Wisconsin game.
Yeah.
And if he goes out and plays great in that game, it's going to get a lot of buzz. And let's be honest, that's what the Heisman Trophy is about. You at some point in time, you have to be able to create buzz to start getting people that don't normally pay attention to you to pay attention to you.
Sure.
And so those are the factors, the numbers, the Notre Dame winning, outplaying other contenders, and then, having that big game moment, whatever the case may be, whether it's because like if Jack Cohen goes out there and throws for 395 yards and 4 touchdowns against Toledo, no one's going to really pay attention.
Nope.
If Jack Cohen leads Notre Dame to just a convincing victory, he's just on fire against Wisconsin, people are going to pay attention.
Different story. Yeah.
Right. And so that's where it is. And honestly, that's a big reason why Ian Book was considered a Heisman contender last year, is how he played against Clemson.
Sure.
I mean, and not just, because if we were to break the game down as coaches, there's a lot of stretches of that game where Ian Book wasn't overly impressive.
But at the end,
including fumbling as they're getting ready to go score, right?
Yeah, right.
But what did he do when the game was on the line?
Yep.
Right. That's what great players are supposed to do. That's what Heisman contenders are supposed to do. When the game was on the line, Notre Dame gets the ball late in the game. Ian Book makes 2 huge plays on that final drive and then has a really big scramble and overtime. I mean, so Ian Book went out and said, hey, we need to make these plays to beat the number 1 team in the country. And that's what Clemson was at the time.
Yeah.
So you need that kind of spotlight game. And that game showed you don't even necessarily have to play well in the game or have huge numbers in the game. But if you can make that Heisman moment, and that's what Ian Book had against Clemson. And then, of course, he outduels Sam Howell. He goes out and outduels Phil Jurkovec. I mean, so he had some – Ian late November was big, and that's the final piece to this. If you're going to have a great stretch, it's going to have to come late for a guy like Jack Cohen. Now, if you're Spencer Rattler, you don't have to have that late stretch because you're getting the hype coming into day 1. But for a guy like Jack Cohen who's not on the radar – you're great. You need a couple big games early, right, to get on the radar, but you got to play great in November. To me, that's the key to really locking down a Heisman Trophy. I think if you look at Kyle Trask this year, that's a good example, Vince. Kyle Trask was getting a lot of Heisman love early in the season, rightfully so, because he was playing great. I mean, he put that team in a lot of instances on his back. But if you go kind of down the stretch, he didn't play great and lost to LSU, right? He just didn't. And then the other teams they played late, they beat Vanderbilt, they beat Kentucky, they beat Tennessee. All those teams kind of stink. So he didn't get a lot of love for those. And then they go out and they play LSU, and he throws 2 touchdowns, but gets picked off twice. He threw for 274, but he had some big misses. And like that kind of negated how great he was against Georgia, right? 30 of 43 for 474 yards, 4 touchdowns and a win. How great he was against Texas A&M. He was the only reason they were even in that game. It dismissed how good he was against Ole Miss. I mean, 30 of 42 for 416 yards and 6 touchdowns. If he'd have done that in the last game of the regular season, you know what I mean? But he did it in game 1. And so by the end of the year, it was just kind of like, look what he did in that loss to LSU.
Yeah, right.
And so I think that's part of it too. But it's going to be fun. I mean, if Notre Dame's good, someone's going to be in the conversation. It's just is it going to be Jack Cohen or Kyron Williams? I think that's really Kyle Hamilton, if he's got, maybe a couple scores and maybe they give him some
maybe they put him on offense or whatever.
Right, something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But if he has like a pick 6 for a game winner against Wisconsin and, picks off Sam Howell 3 times, maybe he gets in it. But I think the way that Heisman works, most likely it's going to be someone from the inside. Michael says, hey, Vince, I realize you had limited time at today's practice. What were your initial thoughts and feelings seeing Kevin Austin healthy and participating full go?
Look, I've been a Kevin Austin fan since the day he stepped on campus, and watching him kind of lead the wide receiver group and be the first in all the drills and kind of be that leader, it was refreshing. It was exciting. It got me all a Twitter in my head because I think this wide receiving core is going to be really, really good. Well, I think this wide receiving core has the potential to be really good, and that starts with Kevin Austin. If he's healthy, I think that takes a lot of pressure off some other spots and allows them to excel in their roles. and he looked good. He looked healthy. He looked good. He looked explosive. In the limited amount, like you said, in the limited amount of time that I saw him, he looked good, and it felt good to see him look good. No question about it.
Now it's just hopefully he can stay healthy.
Yes, no question.
And that's the thing. I was glad to see Vince talking to you and talking to some other people I know that were at practice. They said he had a burst.
Yes.
And that's the key, because that's the concern with a foot injury is.
Yeah.
Now, look, here's the question we have now. Is he going to be able to stay healthy? But the concern Vince and I had a last offseason is you don't know when that foot injury, is he going to have that explosiveness back?
Right.
That's a legitimate question. I've heard a couple rumblings from people I know the last couple weeks that he has really come on the last month of the season, like really come on. And to like, oh God, the DBs are like, oh, he's back. Crap. The guy,
going up against a kid like that every day in practice,
right,
only going to make
it's going to make you better.
So, yeah.
But I say that sarcastically because you always want to go against a competitor. But
of course,
but
that's why I can't wait to see some one-on-ones.
But you hear that. But then when someone I know who's a football coach who knows that position, who's there, sees it, then I'm like, okay,
yeah,
that makes me happy.
Yep.
So because that's a concern when a guy breaks his foot twice in a year. Is he going to have that burst back? Sometimes they don't. We've seen that before. Some guys don't get that back. So now we need to see if he can it doesn't get hurt again. Dropping Dime said, did you see Monday they are revealing new Shamrock Series uniforms on Monday on their YouTube channel? I did not see that, and I really pray to God that they're not the uniforms that people that they have showed.
Those were so bad. I
would have understood it if they would have had them. So what I was told is those were the uniforms for last year.
Right,
they're gonna have a Lambo, and they're just recycling them this year instead
That's
of holding off on
an idea.
In Chicago, in Soldier Field, in Chicago, you're gonna have throwbacks to remind people of the Green Bay Packers.
Packer look-alike uniforms.
Really well done, Under Armour and Notre Dame. Really well done.
Come on, man. And look, this should be a showcase game for Under Armour because they are representing both teams. And you're gonna, we'll see. Look, we'll see what happens. But yes, I've heard that as well. They're just recycling the ones they were supposed to use last year. Not a good look. I'm sorry.
John Smith asked about Jason Ogne and Gabriel Rubio, the two freshmen. As Vince has said, just didn't get a chance to see them today, other than just kind of going through stretching. What did you say? 4
Jason
minutes
Ogne
of offense, right?
From far away, during stretching, and he looks big. I mean, he certainly fills out his uniform. There is no question because he had that big weight gain, right?
Yeah. I have been told that Gabriel Rubio is healthy. That's the positive. Because remember, he hurt his elbow in
right.
Michael asks, hey, Vince, any players that really stood out today physically that surprised you? Thanks.
Well, Joe Alt, for sure. And we mentioned Onie just now. I thought that Zeke looked pretty good at guard. I thought he kind of really filled out his body. I thought he looked a little skinny at center last year, even though I thought he played well. I think he's filled out a little bit more. So I really liked the way he looked. We talked about Kevin Austin. I thought he looked great. Let's see. Those are the guys that really stood out to me. And here's the problem. We're up on the second floor looking down on everybody, and you can kind of get a better idea. I'll get a better idea on Thursday when we are kind of on field level and going around and checking out the drills and stuff because you see them right in front of you. It's harder to kind of get an idea of how big these guys are and how much they filled out when you're up high and you're looking down. And I know that sounds like an excuse, but you can make these guys out so much better when you're on the same level as them and you get closer. Or
how in the past we were on practice field, we were in the bleachers because the bleachers still gives us almost because the crown of the field.
Right.
It's still kind of looking down, but it's on a more normal view. But here it's just like you said, Vince. And it's not even like when we're in the stands at Culver, we're above, but we're back far enough that we can see.
Right.
And the indoor facility, I mean, you're right on top.
Oh, there was times where I was looking over the edge to see some things they were trying to do from like underneath the area.
And that, I mean, look, in the indoor facility, we have to be up there. I mean, because can you imagine the liability of there's not a lot of room.
No, there's
liability
not.
of somebody gets run over by a player. I mean, no, that's where we need to be. But it's just kind of passing along. I don't want it to come across as a complaint. Oh, we're complaining about they got us up top. They have to in the indoor facility. And that's where the early part of practice today was in the end. I would imagine they'll always do that. I imagine they'll always kind of do stretch because I actually think that's smart.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be stretching in 90-something degree weather,
and they blast the music, and they, and that gets guys hyped up, and they're and then when they get outside and they're doing drill work, then you can hear the coaches and things like that. So it makes a lot of sense.
Randy Smith with an interesting comment, Vince. He says Kyron and Hamilton will both get votes as well. Talking about the Heisman Trophy.
Oh, okay.
And says Notre Dame could have 3 in the conversation like Bama did last year, because Bama had obviously Devontae Smith won it, but Mac Jones was in it, and then also you had Najee Harris was in the conversation as well. He was the third, right? Najee Harris was the third.
Yep.
Because Jalen Waddle got hurt and missed half the year. So, I mean, that could happen, Randy, but for that to happen, Notre Dame would have to do what Bama did last year, which is put up monster numbers and crush everyone.
Right.
And, I mean, if Notre Dame kills everybody, just crushes everybody, and Kyron's like 1,500 yards rushing and 500 yards passing, and Cohen's pushing 4,000 yards, and Kyle Hamilton's got like 5-6 picks and a couple touchdowns. Sure, I could see that, but that's exactly what those Bama guys did. They put up monster numbers last year, and they destroyed everyone. And so if Notre Dame does that, I think so. I just don't know if I don't know if Notre Dame's that kind of dominant. Like Bama last year, like you watch that Texas A&M game, you're like, yep, they're going to be a problem. Yep, they're going to be a problem for people this year. It was a vintage Bama team.
Right.
I don't know if Notre Dame's going to be that type of team. I don't think they're going to be that type of team this year. Doesn't mean they can't win all their games. It's just not going to be like beating a top 8 team like A&M by like 30. That's we'll see. Michael Johnson, this is an interesting comment.
It is.
He says Ian Book was great, but he left a lot on the field. And I think Jack is better than Ian as far as the passing game. And the game tape that I watched, don't get me wrong, I love Ian. And I think that's a really astute observation, Vince.
Yep.
I mean,
look, Jack Cohen is not going to run the ball like Ian did. And
sometimes we're going to be happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that was kind of his
crossing
fallback
route to the 4-4 guy. Don't run.
Exactly. And look, Ian made plays with his legs. He did, and that was great. And I think you'll see Jack Cohen make some plays with his legs to get out of trouble. But he's always going to have his eyes downfield, and I think that's the difference. And I think people are going to see that this year. So I mean, we'll see how it all plays out. But I like where Jack Cohen is right now.
Hulk Strongest, great name by the way. What's up from Hawaii? Just got on. Was there any news about Jordan Patel? We had mentioned at the beginning of the show. Brian Kelly said in his post-game press conference, first of all, Jordan Patel wasn't practice. He was with the third-team defense. He went through stretches and all that kind of stuff. So that's number one positive. Number two positives, Brian Kelly denied that there was any issues with Jordan Patel and said that he expects him to play the full season. So if we're going to take Brian Kelly's word, which we're going to do here, right, and we're we know there were issues, but we're assuming they've been worked out. They weren't. Right. They're all good now. He said that Jordan Patel is going to be good to go and expects him to play the full season. So that's certainly very good news for the Notre Dame defense. Yep. With that being the case, because I really think that him and Isaiah Foskey could be a really lethal combination over there, Vince.
Absolutely.
All right, Scott. Last couple questions, Vince, and then we're going to get out of here. We got a couple interesting ones about practice. Michael. Hey, Brian and Vince, thanks for filling me in today and really showing me today's practice through your eyes. Here come the Irish. So that's not really a question. That's a comment. I thank you for that, Mike.
But I love that comment. So I love it.
Yeah, very much. And then Tommy Gunn's asking you an interesting question. He goes, how much room for growth is there within the current confines of campus? Is there any room for the campus to be expanded within South Bend? So for me, Vince, there's still room for stuff on campus. There's still a lot of grass. Now, eventually Notre Dame's going to run out of grass.
Yes,
right?
They will. But they've already kind of taken over the original golf course, and there's certain things that they've done, and look, they are slowly turning the campus into a non-drivable campus.
Right.
And a lot of those parking lots and the roads, they've closed it all off, and they've started putting buildings there. Which is fine. But they are also purchasing land just outside their area. I know that they've tried to purchase
a lot of room to expand it back across the way too.
Also true.
They would have to go across, and I think what they'd have to do there is they'd have to take that road and kind of make that part of the road not a public
part of the road anymore.
Or a public road anymore.
Correct.
But now there's room as far as going into South Bend. They'd have to get into South Bend. They'd have to actually leave the area of campus.
Right. It would be like a satellite campus or whatever. And I know that they've tried to purchase some buildings from the South Bend Community School Corporation, things of that nature. And they are building some stuff. But yeah, the campus is still kind of the campus. There's not really, any satellite campuses or anything of that nature.
Here's another thing they could do. There's still a lot of parking lots on Notre Dame's campus. If they decided at some point in time to take like one of those lots and make it a parking garage.
Oh yeah.
Then there's several lots that they could turn into buildings
for sure. Well. For sure.
Because they don't have any parking garages. It's all just flat lots. So that would be something that I could see happening, like maybe take a part of the Joyce lot or maybe something over by the library that you turn into, somewhere back there that you turn into not beside the library. I think that would look awful, but as you keep going past library, there's those lots back there. I could see like building a huge giant parking garage, and then you've got all these lots that you can just kind of start funneling everything into there.
Yeah, good point.
That would be it. And then you maybe make another one on the other side somewhere, and then that would open up some things as well. So, but they're getting kind of close to where they can't just keep adding new things. If they're
adding dorms and they're adding buildings, as we speak,
they're going to run out of grass at some point in time. But like if you go back and look past past the bookstore, there's those big, like they have, I don't know if those are intramural fields, but like they're just big fields. I mean, there's still room over there.
West fields, but they're slowly. They used to use those for summer camps and stuff all the time, but they are slowly not using those. They're using the newer turf fields that they built at the north side of campus.
Yeah. So that's it. So that's going to do it for today's show. I want to thank everyone for joining the show today. We'll be back tomorrow around 4:00 Eastern. We're going to cover the decision by star receiver C.J. Williams, who's going to decide tomorrow between Notre Dame, USC, Texas, Stanford, and I'm missing someone, Vince. Notre Dame, Alabama.
Yeah.
That is his final 5. So we're going to find out if Notre Dame can go 2 for 2 this week on stud wide receivers. Vince and I have been talking about CJ for quite a while, so we'll be here at 4:00 Eastern for that. So make sure you check that. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Check out the message boards. Come join us. We're going to leave here and we're going to go. Well, Vince isn't, because Vince has an anniversary dinner tonight with the missus. But I'm going to go to those. We're going to talk about practice, questions, whatever you want to do. But we can do that all day long. Okay. And that's the great advantage of the message board. So we don't have to stop our conversation. You don't have to, if you have questions, you don't have to wait till tomorrow's show. You can go to the message board and sign up with us, and we can talk all day long. So thank you so much for joining us. Vince, great job today. Thank you for that. Sir. If you kind of got in late and you didn't hear a lot of our practice recap, Vince has a practice report with those nuggets. Who was the first team offense? Who was the second team offense? Who was the third team offense? All that stuff is going to be in his practice report, which you can find at irishbreakdown.com. So thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, and we're going to see you for the 7th straight day. Well, Vince is going to be seen for the 7th straight day. Tomorrow, I took yesterday off and got to go pick up my grandmother. Vince, apparently you made it seem like something was wrong. You said like a family emergency or something.
I didn't say emergency. I said you just said family.
So I went and picked up my grandma, and she's going to spend a few days with us. So my 89-year-old grandmother. So get a chance to see her. And yesterday we're supposed to do it Thursday, but by the time we got done with the show and then I did it was just like I'm not.
Yeah.
So and you know what? We have been trying for months to try to get Sean Stiers on the show, and we finally were able to get him on. So I was like, this was a perfect time to let Sean come on the show. I think Sean does a great job, and it's just another voice that we like to have. So thanks for joining us today, and be safe, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. But between now and then, I expect to see you on the Irish Breakdown message boards. Talk to you soon.